Welcome to LawNext, and this is another in a series of episodes that we are recording here on the conference floor at the Clio Cloud Conference in Nashville. This is Bob Ambrogi, and I've been speaking with a variety of people here at the conference over the last couple of days. And I'm joined now by Jonathan Watson, who is Chief Technology Officer at Clio. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here, and good to meet you. This is the first time I'm getting a chance to sit down and talk to you, so glad
likewise.
to do that. You are CTO at Clio. You were with Clio before becoming CTO, but before you got to Clio in the first place, what was your background? What was your experience?
Yeah. So I've got a varied background. I've done a whole lot of things, but generally my path to Clio was through technology. I was a dev. I'm originally from Texas. I eventually moved to California, and in San Diego I became a dev, spent some time in the Bay Area, and become a director of engineering at Shopify after that in Ottawa. And then Clio reached out and kind of made my transition that way. So dev by trade at this point in time. I'm an engineer. I like to build product. I like to do those sorts of things. And that's what got me here.
Yeah, I think you're at least the second executive I've talked to today from Clio who was at Shopify at some point, maybe more, but Shabam was at Shopify.
Shabam was as well. He came on a little bit after me.
Yeah.
Stayed much longer than me though.
Yeah. So, I mean, just going back to when you joined Clio, do you remember what it was that interested you in the company?
I do. It clearly checked quite a few boxes for me. So at that point in time, I had managed and run teams at 130 people, 5 locations. Shopify was a much smaller company at that point. And Jack reached out and was like, hey, we're a SaaS product. I like SaaS business. For some reason, I like the grind of SaaS business. It's exciting for me. Growth stage company, love that. Good financials, good financially, great customer base, really well-liked product, premium product in the market. So I made a couple of connections there. The other part that I made was my mother became an attorney late in life. She was a teacher and then a professor and then was in special education and then is an attorney for education systems. And I could see how technology doesn't meet her needs on the day-to-day basis. And even today, she's looking towards retirement and works way too many hours, and it's simply because her firm won't adopt technology, and it's madness to me in a lot of ways. So I can make this personal connection. Jack, being a technical co-founder, was incredibly important to me. I learned at Shopify working for a technical founder is where I wanted to be. I like doing that because they're builders. They want to build all the time. They're not just the marketers. They're not just the business development people. They're like, I build product, and that's the identity. And Jack is that in every way imaginable.
Yeah.
And then it was
he doesn't run down in code or anything, does he?
No, we make fun of his code now, but we actually call it revenue code. So
okay.
It's not technical debt. It just helped us grow at that point in time. But I can have conversations with him very easily. And then we were ready to grow that team. So we were about 40 or 50 engineers at that point in time. He was like, we want to take it higher.
Yeah. 2017, is that right?
Yeah. And so then we grew kind of double pretty quickly and then carried it on and needed better stability, resilience, reliability, good processes to grow. How do we speed up the whole crew? And that's been a large portion of my work.
Yeah. I'm sure lots of people have heard of the title of Chief Technology Officer and have probably know some Chief Technology Officers, but describe what your job is as a Chief Technology Officer.
So there's a couple of different flavors of CTOs. So this will be my version of it. I oversee engineering, product management, design, security, IT, data compliance, data privacy, and data engineering. So anything that gets close to customer data or needs to be secured in some sort of way and is technical falls in my domain, along with the product that we build for our customers. That was the major transition when I went from VP of engineering, where I ran most of those things, to CTO, where I picked up the product and design part of it as well.
Yeah. Again, if you came into the company in 2017, sitting here in 2022, that was probably a moment of almost pivotal change for the company. I mean, that was 2017 was kind of a turning point, I think, for Clio. It was sort of much more accelerated growth, I think, in the years since then. So what has that meant for you? What kinds of challenges have you had to deal with or face since then?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's frankly the best part of the job. The problems change, the chaos ensues. It never hits the status quo in any sort of means. So everything from onlining the biggest customer we ever had that stretches our platforms and our services and our products, to how do you handle a team that is just as large as Clio was in 2015? Like, how do you manage that kind of growth and keep our culture? And you've been at ClioCon forever. And,
all 10 of them.
you know the culture that you can kind of encounter with any Cleon, and maintaining that as we grow. The pandemic, everybody going work from home was a pretty massive challenge and anti-fragility for us. Like, how do we continue what's awesome, and how do we build the next steps for us? So quite a few. I can probably rant for hours on that.
Well, we don't have hours, but I'd love to hear more. One of the one of the things I read about you is that you led the ground-up re-engineering of Clio's practice management software starting in 2017. Why was that even having to be done at that point, and what did that look like? What did you do?
Yeah, so a couple of things were actually underway when I joined, so they weren't necessarily created by me in that way. But what I came in to do was to speed up the engineering team, to create higher quality systems, and to help people grow and develop and become these amazing engineers and go off and do their next thing and make a dent on the world. So if you paid attention to Jack's keynote, like our uptime, our security, our resilience, all of those things are actually outcomes of work that we set in motion 4 to 5 years ago. So it takes a while to build to that kind of high velocity. Clio deploys code 50 to 80 times a day. So it's a substantial amount of work that goes out of the gates every single day.
Yeah.
And doing that at scale without bringing it down is a lot of core work. So we're able to take that. API v4 launched with Apollo, if you remember back then, when the full re-envisioning of it is, and we're getting ready
there was
for
even
our...
like a model of Apollo or something, I think somewhere in the Clio headquarters that I...
Yeah, then we had Chris Hadfield at that one, and kind of closed the loop on that. But the next step for us is kind of what's our next envisioning of that customer experience and that product experience for our customers, because everyone's taking physical processes into the cloud, and no one's thinking about how do you inject technology at the right points to augment, remove, adjust, like all of the different things that technology should be doing in an everyday workflow. And that's the next step for us.
Yeah. And are you does that include sort of all aspects? Are you more back end, or do you also get involved in UI and UX and that sort of stuff?
Yep.
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even product ideation. And,
yes.
Yeah. So what have been some of the maybe accomplishments over the last couple of years that have been most fun for you, or that you're most proud of in terms of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think you kind of start with these war stories that happen whenever you're building things, and the acquisition of Lexicata was a lot of fun. 14 days to rebuild that system into Clio and make sure that it could handle the load of our Clio customers was an exciting time. Launching websites here, there's a cool story behind that, that like how fast that kind of came together, and like what our plans are for the future. To payments, that was a large portion of work for us, was just setting up and building out our future ambition in meeting our customers' needs and their financial and fintech systems. There's like a ton of stuff in there. It feels like every year there's like 3 or 4 pretty awesome things.
Yeah, those are. I could actually tell you a funny story about that. Real quick, I'll tell you a funny story about the Lexicata thing, which is just that I happened to be in LA the year Lexicata was acquired, and I was trying to set up appointments with different legal tech people over there, and I knew the Lexicata people, and I called them, and I was actually within a block of their office. I said, "Hey, can I just stop by and say hello?" They said, "No, you can't." Why? Well, we've got a family emergency or something. I found out later that Jack was there in their office that day, I think, signing the ink on the paper, if they still did ink in those days. I don't know.
I still remember we were at an offsite. We said we want to make this deal happen. 3 days later, I'm on a flight solo to LA to be introduced to the team and figure out what it takes to stand this thing up for ClioCon. The ink's not dry; it hasn't even been drafted at this point, and we're just working like this deal's going to close at that point on. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you've had a couple of acquisitions over the last few. Well, you've had 3 acquisitions total, but a couple just in the last year or so. You launched Clio Payments last year. How do you think about whether it's something that you should build internally or buy it from outside somehow?
Yeah, great question, and one we struggle with. kind of in every single point scenario. So fun thing about technology companies and product companies, we can build everything. So then it becomes a matter of like time. Should we build that? Have they built it better? And is that team awesome that we want to bring into the crew? So like how we think about it is everything needs to be one platform. Everything that we do, and it takes a lot of years to do this, comes back into the platform, and we think about that versus, other acquisition strategies, they kind of leave them fragmented forever and they sell them as point solutions, and that works. And absolutely, that's just not our path. Like we want to do platform. And the reason why is law firms should feel very comfortable with where their data lives. They should feel really empowered by the technology on where it can meet whatever issue they have and whichever job they want to have done at any point in time. And we need to be able to pull those all back in. So as we look at like build by partner, we basically run the gambit of, does it make sense for us to purchase this? Does it make sense at this price? Is this the team? Is this the product? Is this the tech stack? Is this something customers love? Is this something we should build ourselves? And then, eventually you kind of fall at the other end of it with, are we going to be able to bring this into the platform in the way that we want to?
Yeah.
And that yields out a decision on the other end of it.
Yeah. So there's no, it's not sort of a standard formula. Well, I guess that's about as formulaic as you can get, I guess, in a sense.
So
but,
we have a top, we keep a top 5 areas that we're always interested in.
Yeah.
And like those may change year over year. Based on kind of how we cast out our roadmap and things we want to do 2 to 3 years in advance, and then we're always looking.
Yeah. Can you say what those top 5 areas are? Okay, I can ask.
Yeah, you could ask all of it. It's great.
Yeah. Obviously a critical area when you're working in the legal space is security, and as you say, Jack talked yesterday at the keynote about security, but I'd love to hear from you your thoughts on what are the kind of particular challenges that you face by having a product for a legal customer in a legal market, and what do you do to ensure that client data that goes into Clio is secure?
Yeah, it's something that actually was built in the DNA of Clio before I joined. So I've been able to polish it and help make it better with the team as we've grown. But in general, it is core. So it all starts with a few different vectors. Attorneys by nature are insecure. They share passwords. They write them on Post-it notes. They stick it underneath their keyboards. All of that sort of stuff. And they're happy to give access to their systems in many different ways. And it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about that, because I personally view, in our team that works on this and in our infrastructure and security groups, we deal with some of the most confidential, if not the most confidential information on the planet. It is more confidential than fintech information and banking information, because there's a lot of details in the data that we hold that have catastrophic results if they get out there.
Yeah.
So we view it in a few fronts. In the event that something does happen to us in a security breach or leak or some of those sorts of things, we want to make sure that we're always containing that. So the blast area is really small. So that's number one. I should say 0, because everybody's going to freak out about it. Our goal is to make sure that never happens, but security is also one of those worlds where you plan for the best and really work for the worst in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
And that comes from everything from internal processes. There's very few people that can access customer data, and we do that only with permission from customers. So we ourselves treat that data with a ton of respect, and I think that no one else does that. I advise a lot of startups, and they just log into the systems and play around with customer data and look at them, and that's fine, but that has not been our approach. So we protect it from just our own internal processes and approach. And then we wanted to help. We knew attorneys were effectively bad at this, and it's not their skill set. They want to practice law, not worry about this. We knew that we had to be able to detect when somebody was unauthorized access in their systems. We also needed to protect third-party unauthorized access. So it starts to create this whole weave of how do you build heuristics? How do you throw machine learning systems on it? How do you do all of this to kind of notice when the trends change, so you can pick up the phone and call them and go, hey, what's going on? And we can do all of that without seeing the data, which I think is the coolest part. It's like the signals fire out of the systems, and then we're able to get some details and go talk to the customer and help them remediate that where it is. And that's going to continue to improve. We're not anywhere near our final form in that system.
Yeah, I mean, as you suggest, kind of the weakest link in any security structure is going to be the customer. customer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that errant email or whatever.
Yep.
Is there anything you can do around that to address that vulnerability specifically?
Yeah. The number one thing that attorneys can do is activate multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
That removes like an entire subset of issues. And we still have a hard time getting them to activate it, but because it's just a tiny bit of friction, and we're working hard to continue to remove it, but that's like the number one. Your account can't be taken over unless somebody gets your phone, multi-factors with you, with your password and all those things.
Right. I know something else that Jack talked about yesterday is the mobile app for Clio, and I know Clio's had a mobile app for a number of years. So how has that evolved? What are you trying to do with the mobile app as opposed to the browser interface?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that mobile apps went through this transition period, we'll call it 10 years ago, and they started to really rise, of how do we take everything that you do on the desktop into mobile.
Right.
It's wrong. Like, people don't want, I don't know about you, certain activities on your phone are agonizing and others are really wonderful.
Yeah.
So you want to land to really great experiences. And I have a background in free-to-play gaming. So it was all about friction and how do you remove that. And we had what was called the Starbucks test. So if you could play a few hands of poker while waiting in a Starbucks line, that was a way we would validate our build. That you could pull it up, it would load fast enough, you could play through the hands, get some gratification, get your coffee, and get out of there.
Yeah.
So we think about this, and we haven't fully realized it at this point. Like, how do we create that experience in the mobile application for attorneys where they've got a little bit of time? How do they drive a ton of value? And can we make sure that we do that? Clio for Clients is one portion of that. Texting is another. There's quite a few other systems that'll be coming on that smooth it out and just make it better.
Yeah. I didn't know you had a background doing anything in gaming. I mean, what other lessons can you take from gaming and apply to legal technology?
Yeah, there's that one for sure, like removing friction and all these sorts of blocks, and how do you get the gratification of doing that? That's probably like the main one. I think that the other one is this kind of customer obsession, really understanding who the customer is. What I personally learned was I am not the customer. Because often people in product can say, well, I would do it this way. And it's like, well, I'm a power user, and I'm also not an attorney. And I must talk to attorneys to understand more about their needs. And that was probably where I got more interested in product at that point, when it no longer became my experiences, but learning what other people's are, which is similar to journalism. You're learning everybody's experiences and then, recounting it and helping craft stories around it. And I think it's the same thing.
Yeah. I've talked to several of the executives from Clio over the last day, and hearing lots of talk about the continued expansion and growth and development of the company and possible expansion overseas. And so what challenges does that raise for you? I mean, how do you prepare for a company that's growing and expanding? What do you need to be thinking about? What are you working on to do that?
Yeah, so from the technology side, we're pretty much anticipating the company's needs 5 to 8 years from now. At all times, we're trying to say, what does the system look like that we need to be building? What are the long-term things that we have to do, and how do we lay the groundwork for that? Not how do we sprint there, but just every piece that we put in place sets up for the next layer of bricks. So that's one side of it. The next side of it is ruthless prioritization. I said it today in a conversation where they said, what are you not prioritizing? I was like, well, that list is miles long. Like, it's infinite at this point in time. Right. We have to pick the good 20 to 50 things that we really want to be great at and push hard on those. That is the most challenging part of the job. And especially as your customer base grows, as their needs vary, as your segment sizes grow, it becomes even more challenging to do what we want to do. We want to have really happy customers who really love what we do, and we help them do their jobs better.
Yeah. I'm keeping an eye on the clock, so I'm mindful that our time is short. But I've been asking you lots of questions. What else are you interested in right now? What are you thinking about?
In the legal industry or in general? I have a million hobbies.
Oh, well, let's keep it to legal for now. We can have another conversation about the rest of the world. But
yeah, I'm actually really curious. I've been thinking a lot about how the next few years of legal technology evolve. And the thing that's most interesting to me is who do we think's got it right and who do we think is like heading down just the standard path of technology? And often what I find is people are jumping to these technology solves that actually don't walk back into what customers need or attorneys need. So how can we augment their flows? Can we get them more used to technology and engaging with it? And how does Clio set up for all those injections of technology that can happen at any point in time? And then create a great ecosystem for that and build for the long term. Like that's probably the thing I'm most interested in. It's a fun discovery process because you can ask attorney, like, what do you need? What technology do you think you need? And you get really straightforward answers. But if you spend 20, 30 minutes with them, you start to unpack some of the underlying things that they actually need to have solved.
yeah, I know you came from Shopify before. An analogy I often hear legal tech companies talk about is they want to be the Salesforce of law. And in a way, Clio is taking that kind of an approach, right? I mean, it's sort of by having that app and ecosystem and bringing that all into the system. Do you think that that's something that the industry is moving towards more generally, sort of more of a platform approach, perhaps, to solving tech problems or legal tech problems anyway? Or?
I do, and you've heard from Jack probably for years. Legal OS, platform for legal, all of those things. Yeah. I still believe in that very heavily today.
Yeah.
And part of that is because I see how catastrophic it can be if it's not done well. And my job is to be paranoid, and that's how we survive. So I see that world often. And then I also just see the possibility on the other side and go, to really achieve the possibility, we must do that. So on both ends of the spectrum, we have to maintain that OS of legal, the legal OS, and then the platform and system of record for all the pieces of data.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan Watson, thank you very much for taking time out of this busy conference to sit and talk to me.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on.